Kristina Johnson. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dr. Thunder. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. You are the president of The Ohio State University. And I also work at Ohio State University. As you know, I'm the director of jazz studies.
Absolutely.
And one of the early interactions that I had with you is that you posted a picture of one of the bands that I direct, the Jazz Ensemble, which is our top big band, on your Twitter, and tagged me. And I'm going to tell you that in all the years I've been at Ohio State, I started in 2004. It's the first time I can remember that a president has taken that kind of interest in jazz. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Well, of course, in 2004, we didn't have Twitter. So, you know.
Oh, of course. That is true. That is true. But thank you for paying attention and being supportive. You know, you kind of got dropped in the middle of a hornet's nest, so to speak, with this pandemic. You know, you assumed office in August of 2020, and that was only a couple months after everything got locked down. And of course, that means that you've had to make some difficult decisions, both decisions that, you know, have been maybe covered by the media and faculty members around the university are aware of, and I'm sure a lot of decisions that we'll never know about. If you can talk a little bit about what that has been like. I know that's a kind of you can go anywhere you want to go with that question.
Well, you're right. I arrived pretty much late July, and there are three things that I look to do right away. One is get moved into the house. Two is get my Buckeye ID. So, you know, those are in driver's license. Those are all the annoying but necessary things you need to do. And then I looked at the COVID return to campus plan, which was, you know, very well thought out, worked really hard by the team here. But now in the context of a lot of that, of course, planning was in the June period, and we had a spike after the July 4th weekend. So we look at it with fresh eyes. And some of the decisions that we made right away were as simple as, or complicated, as requiring masks outdoors as well as indoors, but also looking at some of the modeling, realized that, you know, the probability was fairly high if you had more than 100 students in a classroom that you'd have some students, faculty or staff, that were COVID positive. And so even with masks on after an hour or more, and we have great ventilation, and our facilities did a great job, as well as our student life leaders. But you could get potentially in-classroom transmission. So probably the first complicated decision was to decide to limit our in-classroom class size to less than 50. So that cut it in half, which meant that a lot of classes that were going to be in person at 100 now had to be hybrid. So one day you'd have 50 students in it, and 50 would be via, you know, an online or video conferencing, and then the next day the other 50. So I think that was one of the big decisions right away. I think the second one was going from testing 300 students a day to 3,000 a day. And with more students, then you need more contact tracing. So we worked with our logistics team to ramp up from 300 a day to 3,000, as well as contact tracing from 6 to not quite 60, but, you know, pretty large number. We had to do all that in just a couple of weeks. So those were some of the complicated logistics, and also just that was a big change as students were planning to move in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And then when I got on a call on August 11th, thinking it was just an informational call, the Big Ten Council presidents and chancellors voted to not have fall sports. Well, I was an athlete, and I was also sensitive that, some of our Olympic sport athletes need to get ready, and we're sending some of our best Buckeyes to Tokyo. So that was a tough thing. Also happened in August. So August was complicated.
You said you were an athlete. What was your sport?
So I played field hockey and lacrosse when I was at Stanford. I actually started the lacrosse program for women there. And by far I was better at lacrosse, but I loved hockey more because it was an Olympic sport. Lacrosse was an Olympic sport. And so, me and every other player in the country in D1 probably dreamed of playing in the Olympics.
All right. And going back, talk to us a little bit about yourself growing up and how you grew up and what were some of the things that you were interested in as a youngster, and then how did that sort of steer you, or what did you learn as a youngster, or what support mechanism or what people in your life sort of gave you, the sort of platform, the sort of support system to accomplish many of the things that you have?
So something that might be relevant to what you do, Dr. Thunder, is so I was 10 years old when Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass came out with whipped cream and other delights, right? So that kind of opened my mind as a kid, definitely to music and a different kind of style of music. But that was such a great decade to be, excited about all the different music groups that were coming out. I mean, look, you had the Beatles, you had the Stones, you had the Supremes. I mean, you had Motown at its height. I mean, those are just ones. And so when I started out being a swimmer, at swim meets, you'd always have the songs playing ahead of time to get you ready to go. So music was a big part of my life. I played violin in the orchestra, learned to play banjo, learned to play guitar and piano. So it was very much, music was a big deal. And I think that was very much my dad's influence. My dad was an electrical engineer. In fact, he died younger, but his best friend growing up, who ended up going to college with him, they both became electrical engineers, told me that as a youngster, he actually devised an electric piano.
How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I looked up when he would have done that. He did it as a high school project, 1932. And I'm thinking that must have been before the electric piano was patented. I can only imagine. So music was a big deal. And education, and I think my mom and dad, I'm one of 7. So I think my mother came up with the great idea that we should all learn to swim, which is good. And we should all be competitive swimmers. I think it definitely gave her a break, a couple hours a day. So we were thrown into the pool at a very young age. And two of my sisters and two of my brothers were very accomplished swimmers. My oldest sister barely missed the 64 Olympics. And, I just watched this weekend the time trials, and we're sending I think Hunter Armstrong for the first time in a while swimming to the Olympics in Tokyo from the Buckeye Nation. So just seeing that played out and realize that, that happened to like my sister. She got a 3rd and a 4th, and they didn't have a lot of relays at the time. So she didn't get to go, which was too bad. My other sister was quite good too. She's an All-American at Northwestern and a Big Ten champion. So, that was sort of in our blood. So those were some of the 2 formative things growing up. And then third was, you were just expected to do well in school. You had to do well. And so I think that was kind of the triumvirate.
It's interesting for me, and I speak of this as being an unfair advantage, because...
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, There are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
And he was also a great musician.
Oh, wow.
He was a great saxophone player, and I would hear him playing around the house.
Oh, my.
He also had his own record company, and so there was a studio in the house.
Oh, my goodness.
And so a bunch of this I can't tell you if this I'm just going by what people tell me, because I don't have any memory before a certain age. But apparently I was giving signs of attention to detail, and there's some story about a new camera that my dad got, and apparently it was very similar to the old camera. And as soon as he came in, I was 2 or something. As soon as he came in, I said, "Oh, that's a new camera." And he says, "How do you know that's a new camera?" And then I pointed out 10 details that were different than the other camera.
Holy cow!
Like, and then my dad asked my mom to do the same thing, and apparently she picked out fewer details than I did. So I don't know about this story. I'm just telling you what
I love it. I love that.
So he saw that I had a certain attention to detail, and then I started sort of asking him about the saxophone, and hey, I want to play, and like this, and playing saxophone is it would be pretty hard on someone below a certain age, because your teeth are still not, you don't have permanent teeth, is all kinds of stuff. But apparently he caved when I was 6. So he said, "Okay, all right, you can do it." And so my first teacher was my dad, and he was my teacher until I went to college.
Oh, wow.
And and so I got, it's a different thing about living with your teacher, right? Because I got an attentive ear on the practice room. Okay, so a story about the practice room. So I grew up in like a 1920 something or 19 something really old house that we renovated. It's out in the country. I grew up with horses and go-karts and four-wheelers and all of this kind of stuff.
Nice.
It was on a dirt road. It's still a dirt road. My parents still live there.
Oh, my.
So the house, I grew up in Michigan, so it's like a Michigan, the dungeon, the basement, the floors are really hollow and everything. And there's a lot of wasted space in those old houses. So for instance, like when we went up to the second story, all the space under the staircase is all like wasted space. That's just how they made houses back then.
Yeah.
So he got this idea. Now the wall that was one of the walls in the living room, which was the room that we all watched TV in, he cut a hole in that wall and created a doorway, and then padded the entire area under there, which was under the steps, and that was my practice room. So he could hear everything I was playing when I was in the practice room. So, I'm playing my scales, I'm doing whatever, and he's like, "Wait a minute, that one was not right. Go back to that one."
My goodness.
So there was a lot of that, and I got maybe 3 or 4 lessons every week.
Oh gosh.
And he had this great way of talking about music, and talking about practicing. He never used the word practice. I was a kid, and kids always want to play, and so that's the word that he used. He'd say, "Go get your horn and let's play."
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And so that was my thought of music, and that's all I wanted to do. So I was practicing for hours a day, and as soon as I could handle it, he created a wooden stand, because as a 6-year-old, an alto saxophone is very heavy, and I played my first instrument was about a 1920 con alto, which was really heavy. And so he made this stand, and you could put it on top of a piano bench. So then I could walk up to the piano bench, and all of the weight was being held by the stand.
Oh, good.
So then, yeah. So anyhow, I say that's like a unfair advantage because he both had a passion for what it is that I do. So that gave me that advantage there. And his constant involvement in every aspect of my life, and not just my life, all, my siblings. He was the same way with all of us. He's, we just celebrated Father's Day. And I have to say, I was very blessed and fortunate to have my dad. So anyhow, enough of that.
How many siblings? How many siblings do you have?
Yeah. So there's 4 of us. My older brother, he is, he writes security software for banks and things. And my younger brother, he was the youngest staff sergeant. He's in the military, Army. Youngest staff sergeant in like a 3-state region. He lives up in Michigan. And his twin, my sister, she's a psychiatrist. Yeah. So I think my parents did my parents did pretty well.
They did well. Yep. That's cool.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about the sort of some of the hard decisions and things that had to be made during the pandemic. I'll talk to you a little bit about the School of Music.
That'd be great.
First of all, we sort of got some special dispensation. So this past school year, we were able to do it was like hybrid, the way that things operated. So all of the large classes were all online. Any of the performance-based classes were sort of sometimes in person, but with social distancing, wearing masks, doing all the stuff that you're supposed to do. And then also everyone had to have a green check mark. All the students had to have their green check mark to be sort of taken into the classroom or whatever. And then obviously for classes like rehearsals and things, which obviously you can't do that. You can't do that virtually. We cut down the length of rehearsals, the number of rehearsals each week. And then you saw one of our performances where everything was really very much spread out.
Yeah.
And, it was awkward and a strange sort of thing to do, but it was also way better than not having anything.
Yeah.
And so I think we made good with what we were given. Obviously looking forward to this coming school year where it seems like most things will be back to normal.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that actually. So how is this fall going to be compared to last fall and last spring for you and for the School of Music?
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be, it will still be restrictive in many ways. And
so?
There is still a sort of, I know that there's a cap on the number of students, but for jazz, that cap number doesn't affect us. Right. Because it's above the number of students that are in any of our ensembles or any of our courses or anything. I know one thing that, although none of us really like, I think we're done with Zoom. I think we're done with it, but I think it has showed even I've got a gym buddy. And his wife works for a big corporation in Columbus. And though things are sort of getting back to normal, they decided that, hey, we can save a lot of money by not having people necessarily work from an office. So we don't need this other building over here. Let's get rid of that building, and a number of folks can just work from home. And they found that they were just as productive, and maybe in some cases more productive. I think for us in the School of Music, one of those sort of things is like having meetings this way for like faculty meetings and other kinds of meetings, committee meetings, and some of that kind of stuff. Saves a trip coming up to the school.
Right.
Not necessarily, and also because you can record it easily, it makes it so that if somebody has to miss a meeting, they can still participate.
Yep.
So I think some of that kind of stuff, I think sort of we were forced to be. I mean, we were forcibly conditioned for this.
Yeah.
Forcibly conditioned, but hey, but we're here now, so might as well use it.
So let me ask you something about that, because I was just thinking one of the most stunning things that happened early on in COVID-19, in my perspective, is the first time that I heard an orchestra that was distributed over space and time.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was an orchestra, and then it was a vocal group. And it was challenging a little bit, I could imagine, although it sounded beautifully, because I know that when I have Zoom calls around birthdays and everybody sings happy birthday, they're all at different times and they're not synchronized. So I guess they get recorded, remixed and all that. But I'd be curious a little bit about how you adapted to having people in different places and spaces and times. And then the analogy I would ask, if this is relevant, would be, so when they're all together now, back in the studio or in playing, there's a synchronicity that you don't get when you're distributed. So I wonder, is there a synchronicity of ideas and thoughts that comes together when people are in the same room as opposed to being distributed?
Oh my goodness. Okay, you're asking the good questions. Okay, so I'm gonna I'm a freelance musician. That's what I was before I took the position at Ohio State. I frequently tour with the Count Basie Orchestra, and I play with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra frequently.
Wow, that's great.
And I have my own band called the Dr. Thunder Quartet. Now, thankfully, we have actually been able to perform since August.
Wow.
Every month, a second Thursdays thing. Now, a couple of those, because we didn't have a venue, were streamed live from my office, from my studio.
Right.
But the rest of those, and this started back. Let's see, we changed venues in February, to a venue called the Blue Note Jazz Cafe.
All right. Okay.
And they do a number of evenings of jazz at that club. Now, I have continued to live stream all of this stuff because there's been more of a development of an online community, and again, a sort of conditioning of people to learn how to interact in participate in live media, in a way that was not the case prior. I think, but prior to that, I think people were like, I think a lot of people were like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to sit in front of a computer screen and type, comments. That's not really what I want to do. But I think now that's sort of the thing. I'm saying this to say that there is nothing like being in the same space and with an audience.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that, because you have the way that things sound acoustically, right? The way that different rooms have a different sound.
Yep.
Some rooms are darker, some are brighter. Some of them have a weird sort of slap back from the back wall,
Yep.
of the hall. All of that stuff is completely, it's not there. It's lost. And then, of course, there's the audience, not just their interaction, not just their clapping and reactions to the music. It's not just that, but it's also how their physical presence actually affects the way that things sound. Right? It sounds different when you play in an empty hall than it does if the hall is packed.
Yeah,
It's just
for sure.
a different thing. Even if everyone is quiet, it's a different energy. And that sort of in the moment. I mean, I'm a jazz musician, and so improvising is a huge part of what it is that I do. So even the sort of interactions with the band where you just look at someone and you know what that means and they know what that means, audience doesn't know what it means, but there's all of this sort of inside baseball going
Right.
on the stage, and there are these conversations that occur that don't require a setup, right? Because you have this ongoing relationship, and you can start at any point in the middle of a conversation, an ongoing conversation, and they all understand what it is that's being referred to. There's the humor, there's just so much stuff, and I'm an introvert, but I am, fronting a band. I'm conversational and all of that, and I always have sort of inside stuff that's going on when I'm looking back at the band, and little comments that I'm making. I don't know. Sometimes I laugh at them harder than they do, but but that's part of it. To the synchronicity point, there's some software. Jack Trip, for instance, is a software platform. Now I haven't interfaced with it, but it's capable of eliminating the delay while you're performing live on, through the internet. But most of the performances that you see online, each individual person has recorded individually their part, and the magic is in the assemblage.
Yeah.
It's in putting the stuff back together, right? So as long as everyone has the same point of reference, it could be a recording, it could be a click track with vocal cues. As long as everyone has the same point of origin and reference, then you can put the stuff back together. And I've done a number of collaborations with folks doing that. One gentleman, guy that worked at Ohio State, he then went to University of Utah, where he was the director of jazz studies there. But this guy's name's Chris Johnson, who is terrific at that. He's a great writer, great musician, but he also, all of the video stuff he's really has together. So he has a big band, and I've been a frequent participant of his stuff. But he was the jazz trumpet instructor and taught arranging, jazz arranging and composition. Also directed our top combo. This is some years ago, but he was here for about 3 years.
Nice.
But I don't know if I actually answered your question, but
No, I think that was very, for me, very helpful, and I get the dynamic and the energy with the audience, mostly being in the audience.
Yeah, it's interesting. Miles Davis famously said, "Don't call it jazz, call it social music." It's social music. That's what this music is, right? It's about, I think okay, so there's no secret that it has taken a long time for the Academy to embrace jazz, and it has yet to have been fully embraced.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that initially some of the apprehension, I think there was quite a bit of racial stuff and bigotry based on who created the music and stereotypes about black culture and all of that. And even if you look at the etymology of the word jazz, which synonymous with sex and like this, and then at one point the word was spelled jazz, JASS, short for jive ass music. Again, a way to sort of belittle the seriousness that the music is, that requires. And in particular, when you consider a form of jazz called bebop, that's like the most difficult thing to do on earth, very challenging. I mean, the kind of the level of musicianship that you have to be able to even sound reasonably okay doing that is daunting. So to have your music sort of belittled by these terms, frequently I hear folks in the Academy, even today, refer to jazz musicians as being jazzers. And again, that seems to be a sort of way to belittle. Another term that you hear is, classical music is legit. That's legit music. Now, of course, by implication, anything that's not classical is illegit.
Legit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't, at this point, I don't think that people realize this sort of inherent bias in, some of the stuff that I'm talking about. And I don't know. So even when people use those terms, I don't think that they mean anything by it. It's just stuff it's in the ether. It's just around, I'm just saying stuff that I heard other people say, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But these days, I think it's less about racism, and I think it's actually more about this sort of battle between art music and commercial music.
Okay.
I think that's become more of the front and center issue, and commercial music has some advantages over art music. Art music, in this country at least, has always required government subsidy. If you look at the orchestras around the country and everything, and even the existence of this music within the Academy, all of that stuff is government subsidized. However, commercial music, and of course jazz, is the first commercial music, right? Commercial music does not require that subsidy. I mean, Taylor Swift doesn't need the government to subsidize her tours.
I get you. Okay.
Right? Yeah. And so I think there's a bit of a battling between these two sort of forces, and I think that some feel the need to, as much as possible, belittle anything that is commercial because it's not really serious, right?
Right.
And I would challenge folks. I direct a band called the Ohio Show Band, and we were in hiatus this past school year because of everything,
right.
No singing and everything. But that band is 6 singers, 4 horns, piano, bass, drums, 2 guitars, and all of the sort of latest technology and logistics associated with developing, producing, and presenting a tour quality show. So live, video sync, automated lighting, dance, all kinds of things.
Oh man!
I mean,
sounds great.
We do a concert that is anywhere between 25 and 28 songs, and it's not, let's do a song now, let's talk about the song, let's do another song, okay, we'll talk a little bit about a song. No, it's not that. It's a show. So we play 6 to 8 songs, no break. Everything goes right into the next thing, and then like an automated voiceover or something that gets set. There's a there's a costume change in the middle of the show, so it's all of that. I think that kind of thing is of critical importance in the academy, for us to do things that are going to actually impart skills to the students that they're going to actually need in the actual music industry, not in an imagined, a wished for, not in that music industry, not in the music industry of the past, not what we hope it will become. No, but the actual music industry, so that if we're cranking out students that have these degrees, that we're actually doing a service to the students, and
right.
not just giving them something that they can say, well, that was good to study in school, but I'm gonna not be using that degree at all.
Yeah.
So
what are the skills? What are those skills that you see besides the obviously performance skills? But what are some of the things that we should be imparting and that you are imparting upon our students?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been big on, and this is because, and this is no knock against the school that I went to, but I didn't get a lot of information about how to hustle a gig, for instance.
All right, I get
this
it.
This is just real world stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Stuff like networking, organizational skills, who to talk to.
Yep.
How to, how to do a demo, how to, one of my, someone that I interviewed on Conversations with Dr. Thunder, Christian Howes, who was one of our guest artists for this last jazz festival, which was this past March. He really excels at this, but one of the things that he talks about is, so you contact a lot of venues and you say, look, I want to come and I want to play for you, and I'm going to do it for free. The first one is free. So come in and you play for an hour, and it's for free. After that, then let's negotiate. Right. Let's talk.
Right.
Because now they see in real time in their actual venue the way that your music is going to actually impact their space, right?
Yep.
And then they're going to be highly motivated. Well, they're either going to say yes or no. Maybe they don't have the money and they can't do it, and that's fine. But he told me he did that, and this was years ago in Columbus, and he ended up with something like seven restaurants saying, "Hey, we want you to do it." So he ended up gigging every night.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, but a lot of those kinds of ideas, and maybe that stuff that I'm saying sounds kind of trade schoolish kind of skills, but in my mind, there's aspects of the way that we do things in the academy that need to become more that way.
Yep, I agree.
Or we're gonna continue to hemorrhage students, and it's expensive. College is expensive.
Yeah, I know. I get that. No, I think those thinking about what you said, I think that's the interface in my field as in electrical engineering. We talk about impedance matching, which is just something to take a particular force and match it to, another venue or another force, and you have to sort of match them. So you put a spacer in between that, sort of smooths out that transition. And those sort of skills that you're talking about, the way to get a gig, the notion that sometimes you have to do some things, for free in order to get the paying gig, are important life lessons. I think we should be teaching that in every class that we teach. That should be, it seems to me, one of the signature aspects of being a Buckeye.
Yes. One of the I think natural advantages that jazz has is that all of the folks that are at Ohio State. I mean, first of all, we have a top-notch faculty.
We do.
Jazz faculty. It's incredible. It reads like a who's who of jazz in Central Ohio and beyond. I mean, we have got folks that
Wow.
Are playing with everyone all the time and all the big names. And
That's very cool.
But they're also great teachers and are passionate about teaching. And so that's always the match. I mean, you have some folks that may be passionate about teaching, but they don't have this sort of performance pedigree.
Yep.
And then you have folks that are really great performers, but they really shouldn't be anywhere near a teaching situation. But in our situation, we have a beautiful match of both of those.
That's really cool.
But the advantage that we have is because we are still constantly interfacing with the actual music industry. The kinds of information that we can impart to our students is much more nuanced, laser focused on what the student's actually going to have to be able to do in order to get those same kinds of gigs.
Yeah.
And often is the case is that we are teaching our competition because we're still working on in the industry. And so the students that we're teaching them well
good.
enough to take
I
our
hadn't thought of that.
Yep. That's the sort of thing. I think one of the challenges in the academy is there is this, I call it the academic bubble or the tenure bubble, right? So the longer you've been tenured, the less the less it's necessary for you to sort of interact with the actual industry that you're from.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that.
And so,
sure.
Yeah. So the longer that, and even if you had, when you entered the bubble, even if you were on the cutting edge, it won't take long before you're not on the cutting edge. And then academia has this sort of curatorial component, which look, I love tradition. The reason that I'm a professor is because I love tradition.
Right.
So it has this sort of looking back component. And so it's never going to be on the cutting edge because it has that curatorial component.
Yeah.
But we don't have to be 20 years behind.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm going to make a note of that because I think that's right. We do have that, as you said, curatorial component. And, there's a little book that was written by Jose Ortega y Gasset in the 30s called The Mission of the University. And he talks about what you just mentioned, which is that the academy is always going to be some period of time out of step with modern times because of what you just said. It's exactly what you just said. But the importance is that if you look at 100 things that are older than 1,000 years, and I think there's only 100, if there's even 100, so not very many, 77 of those are universities. So maybe there's 80, 85, 90, right? English Parliament, church, other things. Not that many things have stood the time of the millennium. But because of that curatorial component, universities have. But we are destined to be a bit behind, but we also kind of rediscover things on a regular basis too. So
yes.
Yeah, that's the importance, and that's what we tell people. It's the importance of professors like yourself being active performers and musicians and being aware of the latest genre or change or movement. That's why I want to be that AAU research institution, so that we're teaching our students on the cutting edge. That's how we stay relevant, and that's how we stay up to date.
Yeah, one reason for the formation of the university. So university, the two words unity in diversity, right? That's what university.
Okay, good. I like it. Yep.
And it's interesting because these sort of musings of, first philosophy, these ideas about the formation of this institution. So we knew, earth, air, fire, water. We knew that these basic essences, but we wanted to know what is the essence that binds these together, the fifth essence, the quintessence, right? And that's what is binding the universities together. That is at least the first reason. But what I have, what I've discovered actually working at a university is the tendency for us to become so siloed.
Yes.
And sort of off to ourselves. And so then we need terms like interdisciplinary, and which is totally redundant because university means unity in diversity, right? So the idea is that we would be constantly collaborating with folks that had different disciplines, and we would be searching for those things that were in common, and we would be searching for the sort of common tongue, these phenomena, these principles that bind things together, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm especially interested in. In most of, admittedly, most of my collaboration has been within music, in the arts, dance, visual arts. My wife is a dancer, and she has a choreographer. She has her own dance company.
Neat.
And so I am her musical director, which means that I write some original music. I edit a lot of music. I bring in artists to do live performances, and I schlep a lot of stuff.
That's great.
That's what and sometimes it's more schlep a lot of stuff, and then the other stuff emerges as needed. But but all that kind of interdisciplinary stuff, that I think that's important. Unfortunately, as I said, it's not the easiest stuff to come by in the university, whose founding mission university is unity and diversity, which is
you're exactly right. It is kind of an oxymoron, right? Why aren't we less siloed? And also the diversity, we haven't really talked a lot about that, but one of the things that I noticed early on is that we could be more diverse in our faculty and our professoriate and our student body and our staff. And I've told the story in my State of the University address that when I went to school, I only had 2 women professors, and I had none in my technical subjects. So I didn't think I could be a professor. Never mind university president. I just didn't think that's what women did because I never saw any. And that's for our underrepresented groups, our underrepresented minorities, our women in STEM, our men in non-gender traditional fields. We all need to see somebody that looks like us. It's an existence proof in some sense. So that's why we are launching the RAISE initiative, which is to be very intentional about the research in social equity, race and equity in education, in the economy, in the arts, in the environment, in public safety and social justice dimension. There's 6 pillars there, but also in the broader professoriate. Beyond the research component, it's a representative component of that excellence in diversity, which is so crucial to us being successful.
Interesting. And one thing, when we're talking about diversity, something that doesn't seem to be on the radar is if you look at in the Black community in particular, so in the academy, for instance, there are 20,000 fewer Black men in the academy than Black women. And part of that is, again, is this sort of, it's an artifact, byproduct of slavery, and then after slavery, Jim Crow, and then with forced integration. So the integration thing, of course, I'm an advocate of integration, not of forced integration.
Yeah.
If we would have done that correctly, then you wouldn't have just been shipping black people out into white communities. You would have been taking white folks and putting them in black communities also. So that would have been more of a balanced thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what that created is this huge disparity where we as black folks, we don't tend to support black owned stuff. Is because we've sort of been trained not to, and not to trust it. So anyhow, but there's all of these issues, and obviously, father absence and all these other kind of things, mass incarceration, the reference of, black men as super predators and all of that, all of that stuff. And we don't disaggregate the numbers.
Right.
So for instance, when we say, hey, there's a mass incarceration of black people. Well, it's not really black people, it's black men that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, it's, police brutality against black people. Well, it's not really black people, it's black men that we're talking about. And it doesn't say, and I've been, well, I'll put it this way. I've been quite disheartened that every time one of these events occurs, black men's issues and black boys, we're totally dismissed and not addressed, and we get leapfrogged. That's what seems to happen.
Yep.
If you can't tell, I'm an advocate for black men and boys.
So what do we need? What would you do if you were me in that, to address that beyond race and beyond some of the things?
I'm going to say something that is totally self-serving and is going to.
That's great. That's why I asked. I want to know. I totally want to know.
A natural place to promote diversity in schools of music is jazz. Okay.
Yep.
It is a very easy place in order to, there's a lot of educated, expert, jazz musicians that are black. I know, I'm heavily networked. I know, if I don't know all of them, I know a lot of them, and I bump shoulders with them or elbows with them frequently. So I think that is a natural way. A further integration of jazz into schools of music, the entire curriculum.
Yeah.
In the School of Music, for instance, right now we are finally we are starting to see some of this integration. It's not completely there yet, but we're pushing. We're starting to see that.
So could we, one of the things that I've been intrigued with all my life is the connection between the scientists and the musicians. If you look at some of our great scientists, they're also quite avid. I didn't hear them play, so I can't say if they're accomplished, but quite avid musicians. Einstein and Max Born, 2 Nobel Prize winners, used to play piano and violin duets. Do you think there's a role to connect the dots then with the School of Music, our College of Engineering, and to look at getting, the interest in both of those from some kind of cross-disciplinary, maybe joint major? Maybe there already is. I'm still so new. I'm still learning.
Yeah, well, we do have a Bachelor of Science degree.
Great.
But I think a natural way to do this. Well, first is that we know that there are thousands and thousands of students that are pursuing non-music degrees that have music skill. We know that there are thousands of them on
Yeah.
campus, and we're able to attract more of them in marching band. But I think that we could do better as far as attracting some of these students to some of these other offerings. Now in jazz, we attract a number of these students frequently, because our ensembles, being a music major is not a prerequisite. It's the way that the audition goes.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So
That makes sense.
right. So
Yeah.
if this guy over here is a major, and this young lady over here is not a major, but is playing circles around this guy over here, the young girl's going to get the gig. There's no question. That's the way that works. And in the past, we have been able to offer most of those students lessons, but with the way that we're set up right now, with some of the budget constraints, since I am the only tenure track person in jazz.
Really? Huh. Okay.
And that's been a problem for a long time. I mean, I think there may be some efforts to change that dynamic in the future, but it makes it hard budget wise to have. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So, I mean, I tell you, one of the reasons I'm intrigued, and, we didn't talk too much about the music sort of taste, but I'll say that I started in 1999 doing an annual holiday CD. So instead of sending out a holiday card, I would send out a CD, and I'd send them out to people that, like my nieces who were 8 years old, and then I'd send them to the president of the university, so 60 years old. So the music, I had to nail down the music that would actually cut across those decades. And so it took a long time, believe it or not. I mean, people used to say, why does it take you so long? And I said, you come up with a song that both a 60-year-old and a 6-year-old are going to like, and then you send it to me, I'll put it on the CD. So this was before Pandora and Spotify, right? For the iPhone, actually, is before a lot. It's hard to believe we even did what we did back then. But anyhow, so I would go to iTunes and I would sample all the songs every night. And then they, came up with celebrity like lists, their playlists. So I would sample all those. I could tell within 8 seconds if it was a keeper or not. I had my probables and my possibles. And I started in May, and pretty much by November, I was ready to produce. So there are wild things from East Village Opera Company to J.J. Cale, Earl Clue. I will say My Time made that. A little Joe sample. My, Joan Armatrading, absolutely. So I had to tell you my Joan Armatrading song, you don't mind. So it's 1974, right? Or I'm at Ebbets Field. That was not the Ebbets Field in England, but the Ebbets Field in Denver, Colorado. That was the little nightclub. A senior or junior in high school. I'm not even sure I should have gotten in, but anyway, that aside. Front row to Joan Armatrading, and there were 6 of us in the audience. And she was probably doing one of those free concerts that you to get in. I mean, that's how new it was. And I remember listening. There were only 6 of us, literally, and she was the backup to Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks, if you know who that is. Anyway, I remember looking at her and thinking, "Wow, she's really good. If she just gets a little stage presence, she might go far." And of course, the rest is history. But so that was something I did for 15 years. I did maybe 16 years, up until, like music then just exploded. And so I ran out of a little bit of time, sometime around, because by that time I was dean then. So in about 2005, maybe 2006, I went to a signal processor on the faculty in electrical engineering. And I said, Larry, clearly I've got a genre here. People ask me, how do I pick these songs? And they've got to have similarities. Can you run a signal processing algorithm through this, pull out the principal components, tell me what my brain is finding that I really like? And sure enough, there definitely were themes. and it's the same algorithms that Spotify uses today. So then Larry went and started a company. He started one of these early companies. He ended up selling it. I don't know if he sold it to Match. What was it? Music Match was one, I think. Pandora. There were only about 6 of them at the time, and it was pre-Spotify. But you could actually then have your channel, and then you could automate scanning all the songs, because it took me a lot of time to pick these songs. But I still have the data. It was clear that there was a uniqueness to the kind of song that I wanted to pick out. And you probably saw the New York Times article on this last week on the 50th anniversary of Blue. Now that was a heck of an album that Joni Mitchell did right before she went to jazz. So it was a different time. It was a different time in music.
Definitely. Well, I think we're right at our time. I wanted to say again, thank you so much for agreeing to doing this interview. And I feel like we're just sort of scratched the surface, and maybe we need to do this again sometime in the not too distant future.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love it. I feel the same way. I feel we just scratched the surface. And I had to ask the question, are you going to be moving into the Timashev family music building when that gets finished?
Absolutely. Yes. We all will, actually.
Oh, that's great.
So for instance, so we're in Hughes auditorium, jazz is in Hughes, and Hughes is like a repurposed mathematics building. That's what that building is, right?
Oh, interesting.
So it never was. It was not designed for music. It's been sort of repurposed and situated in things, and it's been okay. There's no central air in the building, so there's the air conditioning units in every room.
Oh my
which
gosh,
has got to be ungodly expensive.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to pay that bill.
And not great for the environment, probably.
No, and so I'm thinking that next summer is going to be when we do our mass exodus and get everything in place. And
it's going to be great.
And so, I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about it because to a point that I was making earlier about the original mission of the university. So with interdisciplinarity and everything, it's going to be a lot more opportunities with like theater and and dance and music sort of being in the same sort of area. This huge sort of what's the word I want to say? But this huge sort of corridor or whatever.
Yeah.
Huge building, huge, So that's going to be really great. Looking forward.
I'd love to come back and have the opportunity to speak again. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do for the Ohio State University and all the students that are lucky enough to, meet you and learn from you.
Thank you. Well, God bless you, and we'll see.
God bless. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.